Hi, my name is Rodrigo Lozada, and I'm going to be talking about the ethical dilemma in digital piracy. So, companies nowadays they choose to upload their intellectual property on the internet, and whenever they do that, any type of software or media that's uploaded can be susceptible to being pirated. I will be focusing specifically in the music industry, and the literature, books, and textbooks industry. I'll also be talking about how this has impacted innovation in those industries and financials in those industries, and also be addressing why people choose to pirate. So digital piracy is very prominent nowadays. Most people in the younger generations feel like there's nothing wrong with it, that they're acting ethically when doing so, um, making it very popular, especially also in countries with less money. Some people think that since they can't afford it, then it's okay to steal. In 1998, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act by the Clinton administration basically made it so that stealing intellectual property digitally is illegal and is protected under copyright laws. I'll also be talking about how the industry has responded to it, the reforms and the securities that they have done in order to combat digital piracy. And I'll be talking about the ethical dilemma, why both sides feel like they're doing the right thing. So background and significance. First, I want to mention the old business model in the music industry. Before, one of the biggest revenue streams used to be CD sales, cassette sales, and media player sales. Nowadays, hundred hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost in in revenue because of digital piracy. People have been copying songs and albums into CDs and uploading it to the internet. So there's no need for media players and there's no need to purchase CDs. This has impacted the jobs of people who participate in the manufacturing of this, um, and as well as it has led to the transition to music streaming services, something that has benefited the consumer, but for those who are trying to support their artists, it results in musicians making less money. In 2008 and 19, an artist uploaded some of the rates that these music streaming services offer. All of these are just fractions of cents per stream, and this doesn't take into account how in most contracts with record labels, the record label ends up keeping most of that money. So this leads to musicians making basically no money through streaming their music on the internet. So it's in terms of the book industry, it's important to point out how susceptible text is to digital piracy. It takes any kind of scan. You can even rewrite it. It's very easy to put out pirated text out on the internet. So this has led to companies, um, publishers suffering. One of those would be textbook companies. For example, Pearson, one of the biggest companies for textbooks, lost 2/3 of their stock prices between 2000 and 2018. This is something that most people don't realize when they're complaining about the high prices of textbooks. So one of the ways that they responded is by switching to e-textbooks and subscription-based models, making it much harder to pirate textbooks in the education, and in turn ending the use of ending the market for used textbooks and rentals of used textbooks, and also in turn increasing the cost for students as one of their cheapest options is not available anymore, and pirating is most of the time not available either because they have to pay for a subscription per semester. So I'll be exploring the reasons why people choose to pirate. So first of all, the perception in the younger generations is that this is not a wrong thing to do. Everyone does it. There's online forums where people share this constantly, and there's no guilt in doing it. Another reason for this is because people think that the prices are unfairly high, so it's okay for them to steal from it, since these companies are rich either way. And this goes into this point where you're stealing from rich companies where the public is the one that made them rich, so they're just taking it back. It's a form of equity, and it's also ties in with the fact that they see this as a gatekeeping of cultural goods. Textbooks are information, cultural music is cultural goods, so they're just taking it back from these companies. So low purchasing power is one of the indicators that digital piracy is going to occur. In the UK, 17% of ebook readers um, choose to pirate. That's a significant number, but compared to the numbers in Russia, 92% of ebook readers in Russia choose to pirate, where the average citizen makes less money. It's more likely than that they will choose to pirate their textbooks and their ebooks. Another thing to point out is that the cost of hardbook textbooks has tripled since 2000 since 1980s, and that's adjusted for inflation too. So does this mean that the public is right in the way that they set their prices? Um, well, from a utilitarian standpoint, um, pirating textbooks and pirating books is a form of transferring of information. That's something that benefits society. But the downsides of that is the responses that the companies had to this piracy. Well, now textbooks are more expensive and less accessible. Benefits of free music are hard to quantify, and they're hard to justify as well. Most of the time, the one who's suffering is the musician. So this falls into the fallacy of, since this benefits society, then it means the ends justify the means. But in reality, you're hurting that same society that you're participating in, and you're not affecting the companies as much as you would want to. This also ties into the second point why people choose to buy it, because they're protesting an unfair system. These rich companies, they have too much money, and stealing their intellectual property shouldn't affect it, right? Um, but also people choose to, and when they refuse to support other countries, for example, Russia um, is not in good terms with the US, so Russian citizens might choose to steal intellectual property from the US. Um, and it's a way of advocating for reform. It's There's basically saying we will keep pirating until you lower your prices. And the cultural gatekeeping of these goods is incorrect, so we will keep pirating for it. So I will analyze this from a deontological analysis. This means that as long as you're acting right, or ethically, the results do not matter because you did the right thing. So first of all, this assumes the injustices that the system has, um, that they're choosing to put these prices up as a form of gatekeeping, and it's not good for the public. Are the consequences justified? Do the authors and the musicians who suffer through this and the millions of jobs justified because of this injustice? But well, let's see. Is literature piracy working? It has resulted in negative impact for students. Nowadays, they pay way more for their textbooks, and at the end of the day, the reform that they advocated for did not occur. And is it working for music piracy? Not really, because all they did is hurt the musicians and lost a bunch of people their jobs too. Yes, the companies did suffer in terms of revenue, but the main ones being affected are the people who were hired by those companies, not the higher ups who hold the money. So the fallacy in this is the assumption that these are injustices, because the public doesn't know the cost of these intellectual properties, how much it costs to produce, how much it costs to write, the teams that are working behind it. So assuming that the price is unfair and unjust is completely baseless. So as a conclusion, both sides seem to be ethical. From the public's perspective, they have not as much information as the companies, so they're just assuming these injustices. It's a Robin Hood mentality that these companies have money and we don't, therefore we are allowed to steal from them. But this has resulted in undesired results. At the end of the day, the ones who have suffered are the students in the textbook industry and musicians and authors in the literature and music industry. And this results to an unjustified violation of rights. None of the actions of piracy can be justified through ethical means. And yeah, these are my references.